Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. Welcome back to another episode of Paris History, Avec Hemingway, and today we're talking about the ladies of Manet. So this will be interesting. We're going to take a look at some of his paintings and who these women were in the paintings. I think most of the time we're just like, who are these naked women? Who are these colorful women? We're going to get the answers to those questions. So I'll let Claudine take it from here.
Yes, and you know how I love my art, and especially Manet. So I'm
Yes.
really excited about this one. So Edward Manet, of course, everybody knows who Manet is. In 1862, he walked into the studio of Thomas Couture and met a young girl. He would teach Manet and Fantin Latour, and also has used many of the young models in Paris. Thomas Couture did. And so on this day, he met a young lady named Victorine Louise Meuret. And we've done a whole episode about her. But she was in Couture's studio when they arrived. She was just 16 years old. She had red hair, and she was nicknamed La Crevette, the shrimp. But he instantly saw her and was just completely fascinated by her and wanted to paint her right away. He painted her the first time in a painting called The Street Singer, and her with her piercing eyes. And so, but then he would also go on to add her into two of his most controversial paintings at the time. The first one is, of course, Déjeuner sur l'herbe. Most of these paintings you could all see, all but one of them you could see at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris.
Ah.
So the Déjeuner sur l'herbe was painted in 1863. Most people all know this painting. Of course, I'll have lots of pictures of them, each one of these on my website. But it was in 1863. It was at the it was at the salon. It was actually submitted to the salon. But at this period of time in 1863, that's when the salon was a thing where it was basically the only way for artists to get their art out. There wasn't really a lot of galleries. Museums were few and far between. So this was the way for artists, all of them, the Manets, the Monets, all of them, to get their artists out in front of people. This is where the state would buy paintings for, things. People would come there it's just basically like a big art show. In 1863, you had all these young up and coming artists that were trying to shake things up, which would end up being called the Impressionists. And the old school salon was not having it. Like, this was not classic art. This is not the subject. It's all blurry. Like, why are you painting outside? You don't go painting outside. So at this time, Manet does this painting. And it gets rejected. 2,700 of the 5,000 paintings were rejected.
Wow.
But he should have known that, because the painting, he was inspired by Raphael's Judgment of Paris that was painted in 1518. It hangs in the Louvre. He would spend a lot of time in the Louvre copying paintings and basically kind of, teaching himself all these things about classic art. And so one day he said, he was looking at it and he said, "It seems that I should paint a nude. Very well, I will paint one." And the thing is about adding naked people, and especially ladies, into art. At that time, you only did it when it was an allegory or it was something religious. So
he was being badass.
Yeah. So he's like, I'm going to paint some naked chicks into my paintings. So he does that. And then he says, I know that this will, people will not like this, but then again, I will do it anyway.
I love it. He was like a rock star, before they were rock stars.
I know. Maybe Manet was like wearing like black leather and he had like on and tattoos. Originally he called it Le Bain, the bath. And it included Victorine and his family. In the Judgment of Paris, Raphael on the right depicts a man that it is Neptune holding a trident. Manet used the same exact form to pose Fernand, who was the brother of his lover and future wife, Suzanne Lehoff, replacing a trident with a cane. I mean, when you look at it, you have to look at the two side by side because it's literally the same pose. It's also the same pose Adam that Michelangelo used is Adam in the Creation.
Oh, interesting. It's all overlapping, yeah.
It all overlaps. He dressed the men in like Second Empire clothing, which is what really kind of freaked people out because here's this, naked woman and then these men are in contemporary clothing. Like this is just any day now. Has always been thought to be Victorine that he used Victorine as the model, but a lot of art scholars actually think that the body is actually of Suzanne. But then he ended up putting the face of Victorine on her because it was also thought that his father had this affair with Suzanne, who was their music teacher. And so he was ticked off at his dad. So it kind of like made the whole thing a family affair. But then it ended up that he changed it so that the face is of Victorine.
That is too creepy.
In the painting, in the foreground of the painting, there's a basket spilled out with fruit. There's some cherries in there and some figs. And then just basically, piled up on top of her dress. She's there, just looking at you, looking at the viewer naked. The two men, that's also the thing is because here's these two men that are fully clothed and this woman just sitting there naked. There's another woman in the background in the river. That's also thought to be, he used Victorine as the model for that as well. But of course, when this ended up going and getting submitted to the salon, they freaked out. Everybody freaked out because, it just was not, it was not appropriate to have that in art.
I love that, like the dudes have clothes on and not the women. That always thought that was weird about that painting.
Yeah, it's such a cool painting. But he kept it until 1878 when he sold it to a singer named Fauroux for 2,600 francs. In 1898, Durand Ruel, the gallery, had purchased it and then sold it to a man named Moreau Nelton, who loaned it to the Universal Exhibition. Then Moreau later donated his collection to the Louvre. It hung in the Pavillon Marsan of the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in a very place of prominence. Basically you walked and you would see it. And then it ended up moving down to the Orsay, which is where you see it now.
Oh, wow. So yeah, that's right. It's been jumping around for a little while now.
Yeah, it's been moving around. Of course, his other painting, he did the same year in 1863. He did the same year. He used Victorine for this one too. That's maybe even more famous than the Déjeuner sur l'herbe is Olympia.
Mm-hmm.
The painting ended up he kept it until 1865 when he put it to the 1865 salon. Of course, that then again completely freaked people out because this was what's even worse. It's a woman like lying back on a lounge and looking at you. She's completely naked. At the time, the name Olympia was thought to be, pretty close to a name a prostitute would use back then. So they would end up thinking that she was a prostitute. He used a lot of different things in there between her, the ribbon around her neck as a necklace, the shoes that she has at one's like kind of dangling off her foot, the way she's looking at the viewer is all reminiscent of, they think, that she was a courtesan or she was a prostitute.
Naked ladies.
Naked ladies. So, people did not care for that. Another thing is there's a black cat in the painting that's supposed to also be another symbol of prostitution. In the background, there's the little black gal that's her name. They did this whole thing a few years ago where they did all of this research to find out who some of these Black models that were used in like Jericho and all these other paintings. And it's really fascinating. It's really amazing. They ended up finding out who a lot of these artists were, because a lot of them, it would just say Olympia and the, Black servant, and they wouldn't have any information. Ended up finding in Manet's diary that her name was Laure. And so he wrote on there, one day he wrote, Laure, a very beautiful Black woman, and her address, 11 Rue Ventimille in 3rd floor. He wrote in 1862. We don't know her last name. But, he added her in there, and she's holding a bouquet of flowers, a huge bouquet of flowers, and looking at her. So is it like she's saying, oh, this is from your, one of your admirers or your past customer, or it's coming from the next customer? So it's this really, of course, very famous painting. She sat for him many times to do that painting and to do 9 other ones that she had worked with him on. It basically was, this painting was the suggestion of this courtesan. She got ridiculed a lot. People thought that she was ugly. I mean, it's a beautiful painting. She's beautiful in the painting. People were saying that she was ugly and she was horrible because, she sat for this. So she had to deal with a lot of that. He later on in his life, he had said, from the episode we did about her, that, he painted her so many times that he said, oh, if these sell, I'll give you some money. After Manet died, Victorine went to Suzanne and basically said, Manet said this because she desperately needed money. And Suzanne kind of just blew her off and said, threw her out. So Victorine, she ended up becoming a artist of her own. But the painting itself, it now, of course, is in the Orsay. But before that, he's also had kept that until he died. It would stay in his possession. And then Claude Monet, after he died, Claude Monet tried to purchase it from Suzanne. And she had actually put all these things up for sale. She didn't get the asking price that she wanted on that painting, so she hung on to it. So then Monet ended up getting everybody together and raising enough money. She wanted like 20,000 francs for it. He ended up getting 19,400.
Oh my goodness.
And she actually said, okay, and sold it to him. He then turned around. Yeah, and wanted to give it to the Louvre or get the Louvre to buy it. And they were like, no, we don't want it. It was still too controversial. They're like, no, we do not want it. And so then he kept working on it. He finally agreed. They finally agreed many years later to purchase it. But they would only put it in the Musée de Luxembourg, because that's to be in the Louvre, you had to have been an artist that had been dead for 10 years. And it hadn't been that long. So the Luxembourg was kind of the museum of living artists. So Olympia was, thrown over there to the Luxembourg. She then ended up for a short period of time coming to the Jeu de Paume. The Jeu de Paume was actually kind of like the pre-Orsay. It was where like a lot of the Impressionist paintings were. It was basically set in this room where you'd walk in and she'd be like right in the middle of this big wall. This huge, like you couldn't miss her, and she was given like the grand space that she should have. Once they ended up moving into the Orsay, it's down on the lower level. It's in a room with a few of his other paintings, but you don't, it's dark. There's no natural light, and so it's kind of poor Olympia put baby in the corner.
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
Yeah, nobody puts baby in the corner, but I mean, it's still fascinating. To the left of where she is the painting he did of Émile Zola, who was a huge defender of Manet's. And when Manet was going through this controversy in 1863, Émile Zola would write these pamphlets defending him and saying how amazing his art is. So he painted this picture of Émile Zola. It's one of my favorites. He's sitting at a desk and he's reading the book that he had written about Manet. And above it is this little kind of collage of like 4 or 5 different paintings. And one of them is like a Japanese girl that's really beautiful. And then there's a miniature version of Olympia. But instead of her eyes looking out towards you, like in the original, her eyes look down towards Émile Zola.
That's so cool. I like how you put that little spin on it.
Yeah. And then the painting ended up, of course, getting picked up by the Salon. So eventually Manet got Olympia into the salon. It was just a little bit of a different version.
Just tricky, very tricky.
Very tricky. The other one of his other most famous muses that he captured was Berthe Morisot, who we've also talked about. He was at that time fascinated by Spanish art, especially Francisco Goya, and he went down to Spain to go and see these paintings of Goya and also Velázquez. So when he was back in Paris, he ended up meeting Berthe Morisot. He met her through Henri Fantin-Latour. She and her sister were copyists in the Louvre, which is basically the only way for women to take art classes. He ended up meeting her. He was actually kind of more attracted to her sister, Edme. But then he and Berthe became very good friends. Berthe, I know how much you love that name.
Bert.
And so he met her and wanted to paint her immediately the moment he met her. He had come back from Spain and he had seen this painting by Goya called the Balcony. And so he, when he met Berthe, the first time he painted her, this was basically the second time that he would work with her. And he was like, I want you to sit for this painting. I have this idea. And she kind of was like, I don't know about this. Like, this is, this, I mean, it's basically, you were kind of basically a level above a prostitute as a model. And so, it wasn't exactly looked at very well. But he was loved because Berthe had these dark black hair and this very dark Spanish look to her. And he absolutely loved that. So he had finally convinced her. So she sat for him. He painted this painting called Le Balcon. It is in the Orsay. It basically features her. She's sitting down. The painting uses a lot of green for the building and the railings. She's sitting there. She kind of looks straight on at you. Also in the painting is another artist. It was Fanny Kloss. So she was a violinist. She was a close friend of Manet's wife. She is standing there in the painting. She was one of the first women to play in a string quartet in Paris. And her husband, Pierre Prince, was made a family fortune in umbrellas with sculpted handles and, very high-end umbrellas. So Manet painted her holding a green umbrella.
That's fun.
Yeah. And then in the background is another gentleman, his friend Pierre. He stands there in the background. And then if you look even in the shadows, there is a little boy named Léon, who was the son of his wife, Suzanne, which it's been rumored, was he actually the father, or maybe his father was the father?
There was a lot of weird stuff going on.
Nobody actually knows. But of course, the critics kind of were annoyed about this painting too. They reduced Manet, saying that he was nothing more than a house painter. Mm-hmm. And at the Salon in 1869, it didn't attract a single buyer. Manet ended up later also keeping that in his studio till the end of his life, until fellow artist Gustave Caillebotte bought it and kept it until his death. And then later he ended up giving it to the Orsay.
That's crazy.
It's a really amazing painting to see. The other one that he did, that's one of my very favorites, Berthe Morisot with the violets in 1872. He ended up having her sit for him. She was in wearing all black. She was in mourning. And he painted this picture of her. It's very close of her face. She's wearing this kind of tall black hat. She's holding this little teeny tiny bouquet of violets that you almost completely miss because there's so much darkness in the painting. But she's just staring, you could just look at this painting and just get lost looking into her eyes. But it's definitely one of my very favorites. It could be seen, of course, in the Orsay. He ended up keeping that one as well. She wanted to actually purchase the painting, and she ended up after Manet decided he was going to sell it, she ended up convincing him. She got it from him. She ended up marrying his brother, Eugène Manet. They were all very close. I don't think that Berthe and Manet ever had like an actual relationship, as far as a sexual relationship, but she did marry his brother Eugene, so they were all very close. At the time, she of course became an amazing painter in and of itself. She ended up that they were all interred together. They're at the Passy Cemetery that's right there by the Trocadero. And so,
I've never gone there. I need to go.
yeah, it's really cool. There's the grave of Manet, and if you look on the stone, you'll see that it also has that Berthe Morisot is also buried there.
I need to go. I was like there every day.
Yeah, it's really cool. But they had a really amazing relationship. She ended up, Manet died, and she ended up giving birth to her daughter, Julie. And then she died. She died later on after her husband also died. It's all of syphilis, which is what Manet had. And then later on, it said that Berthe died of pneumonia, but most likely it was also from syphilis.
It was just passing it around.
They were passing around like crazy back then. And then, of course, the last one is, unfortunately, you can't see this in the Orsay, but you can. I did see it in Paris a couple years ago. It was Manet's. It was one of the very last paintings he ever did, was the Bar of the Folies Bergère. And this is an amazing painting. They had a special exhibition at the Fondation Louis Vuitton that was the Samuel Courtauld collection, because the Courtauld collection in England, in London, it is still going under a renovation. So because it was closed and under renovation, they were moving around a lot of his collection. And he had this painting. And so I knew this painting was going to be there. I love this painting. I went first thing in the morning and walked in, and it was right there when you walked in. And I just stood there and shed a few tears because it was just astounding to see it in person. He painted in 1882. The woman posing for it is Suzanne. She actually had been a waitress and had worked at the Folies Bergère. She is standing there in front of a bar, and behind it is a mirror. And in the mirror, it kind of, bounces back the image of what she's looking at. It's a close-up of, the bar. There's bottles of beer, which you could see the Bass logo, the Bass beer logo. There's a bowl of oranges. And then there's on to the right, there's a gentleman that's kind of talking to her, but she just keeps staring off at you. So it kind of gives you this thing of like, she's just dreading where her life is. And this is, we've all been there. Like, is this really what I'm doing? that really horrible day at work.
Last year of our lives.
Exactly. Like, is this seriously happening? And the guy's kind of talking to her. It kind of also, again, gives the impression that maybe she's also, a prostitute. But it's just this amazing, amazing painting. He did it, basically, he would die in April 1883. He did this painting, and it was finished at the very end of 1882. When he was pretty sick, he ended up having part of his leg amputated because of the sickness. But he, in it, there's this footed dish of oranges. That was kind of, a emblem of prostitution. I want to do a whole episode about prostitution in art because
seriously,
apparently about 50 different things that basically gives you the hint that this is a prostitute.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. But she just has this look to her, just very beautiful. Here she is standing there, these wealthy men in their very, bourgeois outfits and their top hats and their, suits and tuxedos. But she just kind of just gazes off at you. The painting itself, if you look closely, you can see the brush strokes on it. There's so many different stories you could tell. You could see where he worked on it over time and how different things were layers and added on. It opened, the Folies Bergère opened in 1869 in Paris. It was an opera house. It was turned into a music hall in 1872. And it became like the place to be during the Belle Epoque. And so he was definitely inspired by all of those things. This was kind of the height of the gaiety of the period. And so looking at her, it kind of gives you more of a, there's the sadness behind the Belle Epoque, which was everybody thought everything was amazing. And of course, the Belle Epoque was sandwiched between the Prussians sieging Paris and World War I.
Gosh, tough times.
Yeah, so it was definitely like, this is supposed to be this great, wonderful time, but you do not get that impression from her at all. It later on, it was one of the most, when Samuel Courtauld purchased it in 1926, it was the most expensive in his collection. At that point, he paid $110,000 for it in 1926.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money back then.
Yeah. So it's definitely worth a lot more now. The Courtauld collection in London is supposed to, the building is supposed to finally reopen in November of this year. So if you're in London, you should go check it out. The collection includes like Toulouse-Lautrec and Van Gogh and Renoir and Cezanne. Like it was an amazing exhibition with so many paintings and so many very famous paintings that you've seen in books and before, and that they're all ones that he currently owns.
That's crazy,
now, but it's all in the Courtauld collection.
No big deal.
No big deal. But, Manet, he definitely had quite a few different people he painted, but, those Berthe and Victorine are definitely two of his most famous. And then the Folies Bergère is, definitely one of it's his last painting, is one of his very last paintings that he did. And it's just, it's interesting to see the difference between that painting and the earlier ones that he did. Just to see over time. But all of Manet is one of my favorites. I can't get enough about learning about Manet. And
I'm going to go to the museum and listen to our podcast.
I know. I know.
That's what you should. We could be an audio guide.
Yeah, no, there's actually something I'm working on, but it's going to be a lot of work, but I'm kind of excited about it.
The Claudine Hemingway Museum app.
Yeah. Exactly.
I love it. I love it.
And this also means a prostitute.
And look for this. This is a prostitute.
It also means that they're a prostitute. Yeah, it's kind of funny that it's the amount of things that they say, the black cat, and that she has a foot, her shoe is dangling off one foot. That means she's like, does it really though? Like who decided all of that?
Basically, she's a woman. She's a prostitute.
Exactly. She's a woman and she's sad for an artist. So
yeah,
basically they're like, she has to be a prostitute.
They made stuff up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Claudine. And I am so excited for another episode next week. And don't forget to join Claudine's virtual tours every Sunday. She takes you around Paris live on camera, gives you all this fun history in real time while you look at it on a camera. And you can sign up for that on her website, ClaudineHemingway.com. And make sure to tune in every week for another episode of our podcast as well.
Thank you for listening to Paris History Avec a Hemingway. If you want to find out some more, you could always find me on my Instagram page, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge, and that's BLEU, as in the French way to spell it. And each day I post a daily history lesson about a person or a place or something in Paris, or it's lots of fun facts. And then also at ClaudineHemingway.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter there.